the AI Cafe Conversation Podcast. I'm Sahar Andrade, your neuroleadership coach. This is the Friday Forbes article like edition. Shorter, sharper, built to answer one question with the decision it deserves. Today's question is, why does your brain treat a hard conversation like a physical attack? Because it does. And once you understand exactly why you approach very difficult conversations in your leadership, changes permanently. Let's go into it. That's the mechanism, okay, that I'm going to share with you first. What the amygdala does before you enter the room. And for reference, amygdala is our threat center of the brain, our survival center of the brain. It's the brain threat detection system. It runs a constant background scan, safe or dangerous, approach or avoid, fight, flight, or freeze. And here is the part that changes everything. The amygdala cannot tell the difference between physical pain and social pain, or real threat or social threat. For example, it doesn't tell the difference of a threat if a tiger is running after us or we received a very harsh feedback from an executive. It's the same threat level for the amygdala. And it also does not understand the difference between physical pain and social pain. Research from Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA showed that social rejection, conflict, and the anticipation of a difficult interaction activate the same brain region as physical injury. The dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, a mouthful, right? The interior insula. The same regions that fire when you stub your toe fire when you think about having a conversation you have been dreading. Which means before you have said a single word, before you have even sent the calendar invite, your nervous system has already classified that conversation as a threat to your physical safety. And what does that do to the nervous system with a physical threat? It avoids it. Here is where it gets more expensive. Research on avoidance shows that the imagined conversation activates the amygdala almost as intensely as the real one. So the leader who is avoiding a hard conversation is not avoiding the stress of it. They are experiencing a version of that stress every single time the conversation crosses their mind. Monday morning, the thought surfaces, amygdala fires. Tuesday afternoon, they draft an email, then delete it. Amygdala fires. Wednesday, they pass the person in the hallway and feel the stomach tighten. Amygdala fires. The amygdala stress of avoiding one conversation across 5 days of a working week is higher than the stress of having the conversation itself. Sit with that for a second. You're torturing yourself for 5 days for no reason. And at the end, you're going to have the conversation. The brain is paying the full cost and getting none of the relief. In 2026, the mechanism is running hotter than it has in a very long time. AI adaptation has created a layer of conversations that leaders know they need to have, but their nervous system classifies as a high threat. Conversations about role changes, about performance that used to be strong and is now inconsistent because someone is struggling with the new tools, about decisions being made about them that their team is asking them to explain and they do not fully understand yet. These are not optional conversations, but they feel threatening. And the amygdala is not making a logical assessment, it's making a survival one. Burnout in 2026 is being accelerated partly by the accumulated cost of conversations leaders are carrying instead of having. What is the cost for that? What does it cost us as leaders? When the amygdala flags a conversation as a threat, the nervous system does something specific. It keeps the stress response activated until the threat is resolved. We're not doing ourselves any favors. An avoided conversation is a unresolved threat, which means the activation never discharges. It carries into the next meeting, into the car ride home, into the moments before sleep, and even during sleep. I have worked with leaders who have been carrying one unresolved conversation 6 months. For 6 months. They thought they were protecting themselves. They were actually running a low-grade stress response continuously for 26 weeks. That is not avoiding the hard conversation. That is living within it. When a second that happens, it carries over and over and over. There is a second cost that is harder to see. When a leader avoids a conversation, the other person feels it. Not always consciously, but the nervous system reads nonverbal cues before the conscious mind does. The slight shift in eye contact, the change in energy in the room, the way someone becomes careful in their presence. The team member starts to fill in the silence with their own interpretations. And their interpretations is almost never as kind as the truth. Perceptions. Remember, perceptions are our own realities, but they're not realities. And we all have different perceptions. The leader was trying to avoid causing harm, but the silence caused harm. In the AI adaptation context, avoided conversation have a compounding effect. When leaders do not have the conversation about what AI means for people, responsibilities, roles, and how decisions are being made, the teams fill that silence with fear. Fear is a more powerful driver of AI resistance than any actual threat the technology poses. We are compounding the factors that actually lead to resistance rather than prevention. A study showed that 70 to 80% of employees are avoiding at least one important conversation right now. When both the leader and the team member are avoiding, the silence becomes a wall. And walls are expensive to tear down. So what is the path to that? What regulations actually can make possible? Here is what the neuroscience tells us. In order to have a hard conversation successfully, it requires the prefrontal cortex, our logical part of the brain, to be online. But if you are on survival, if you are on threat detection, the prefrontal cortex goes offline. So the PFC, or the prefrontal cortex, governs nuance, empathy, the ability to hold two things true at once, the capacity to hear something painful and respond thoughtfully instead of reactively. When the amygdala has flagged the conversation as a threat, blood flows moves away from the prefrontal cortex before the conversation even starts. You walk in already partially dysregulated, which is why so many hard conversations go badly. Not because the leader did not know what to say, but because the nervous system was already in threat mode when they tried to say it. Nervous system regulation before a hard conversation is not a soft practice. It's a performance preparation. So what do we do to shift that pattern? Few things. First, name the amygdala response out loud to yourself before the conversation. Not to the other person, to yourself. My amygdala or my threat has been flagged, or my amygdala flagged this as a threat. That is not a fact about this conversation. It's a response from my nervous system. You can do it in any form you want. You can just say, this is what I'm feeling right now. And remember, when you say, I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling fear, it puts you in a position of an observer and separates you from the emotion. So you can actually have a path for your prefrontal cortex to come online. But when you say, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm scared, you become that emotion. You're not detached from it. Words have power. Remember that. So the narration alone activates the prefrontal cortex. You have re-engaged the thinking brain. Second, regulate before you enter the room. Not a long practice, 2 minutes, 90 seconds if you don't have 2 minutes. A deliberate breath that extends the exhale. Movement that discharges the cortisol. Something that signals to your nervous system that you are regulated and the threat response is not required. Oxygen is the food for the brain. Third, go first. Not in the content of the conversation, in the nervous system state you bring into it. A regulated leader regulates the room. When you enter calm and present, the other person's nervous system reads that cue before you speak. You have already shifted the conditions of the conversation. In my work with leaders, this is where the CARES, C-A-R-E-S, framework lives. It's built for exactly this, the conversations that matter most and feel the most dangerous. Not by making them easier, by making them possible from a regulated nervous system instead of a threatened one. The conversation doesn't change. The state you bring it to does. And that changes everything. If you're carrying a conversation right now that you know needs to happen, I want to offer you this. Your avoidance is not weakness. It's an ancient wiring doing exactly what it was built to do. But you're not ancient. And the conversations you are avoiding is probably the one that would free you. Name the threat, regulate before you enter, go first with your nervous system state. The neuroscience is clear. The conversation is always cheaper than the avoidance. If you want to work through what is underneath the conversations you're carrying, that's exactly what a leadership clarity call with me is for. It's free, 30 minutes, no pitch, just clarity. The link is in the description below. Thank you for closing out this week and this 60-day contact series with me. I will see you on Wednesday, but like I always say, before I go, show me some love. You can like, comment, rate, share our podcast with someone that needs to see it. Till I see you on Wednesday, peace out.